Amina was a young woman known for her gentle heart. She lived in a small town not far from the coast, where the market was the heart of daily life. Every afternoon, the market came alive with voices calling, footsteps rushing, and laughter echoing between wooden stalls. Amina enjoyed going there not always to buy things but simply to watch. She liked the colors of the fruits, the smell of spices, the sound of women bargaining, and the sight of children running between the crowds. For her, the market was a place full of life, and each visit felt like stepping into a story. On one such afternoon she walked slowly through the market, carrying a small basket. She had bought some plantains, a little groundnut, and a piece of cloth she liked. The sun was bright, and the air smelled of roasted corn. As she turned a corner near the spice stalls, her eyes stopped at a figure sitting by the side of the dusty road. It was a boy, no more than 10 or 11 years old. His name was Chaik, though Amina did not know it yet. He sat quietly, his thin frame hunched, his eyes lowered. His shirt was torn at the shoulder, and his shorts were faded almost to white. His feet were bare, coated with dust from the road. Unlike the loud shouts of sellers and buyers, this boy made no sound. He just sat there watching the ground as if he had no place to go. Something in Amina's heart stirred. She slowed her steps, her eyes lingering on the boy. She thought of her own childhood, when her mother would hold her hand in this very market. She remembered the warmth of her mother's voice, the way she would laugh when bargaining with stubborn traders. That memory always brought comfort, but it also reminded her of her loss, for her mother had passed away years ago. Around her neck hung a necklace, simple yet precious, the only keepsake she had kept from her mother. She wore it every day close to her heart. The boy lifted his eyes for a moment and their gazes met. His eyes were dark, tired, yet there was something gentle in them. Amina felt her chest tighten. Without planning to, she walked closer. "Are you all right, my child?" she asked softly. The boy did not answer at first. He only blinked as if unsure whether her words were truly meant for him. Then in a quiet voice he whispered, "I am just hungry." Those 3 words touched her more than she expected. She glanced into her basket, then sat beside him on the dusty ground. From her basket she took out the roasted plantains she had bought and handed them to him. Chaik's thin hands trembled as he reached for the food. He ate slowly at first, then with more speed as though afraid someone might take it away. Amina watched him quietly, her eyes soft. When he finished he looked at her again. He did not say thank you, but his eyes shone differently now. They were brighter, filled with something unspoken. Amina smiled, feeling her heart grow heavy and warm all at once. She reached up and touched the necklace at her neck. Her mother's necklace. She had never removed it before, not since the day she lost her mother. It was the last thing that reminded her of home, of safety, of love. For a moment she hesitated. But then, looking at the boy again, she felt a strange certainty. She wanted him to have it. Without saying much, she leaned closer and unclasped the necklace. The chain glimmered faintly in the sunlight, though it was simple in design. She gently placed it around Chaik's neck. The boy froze, his small hands reaching up to touch the chain. His eyes widened with surprise. For a moment he looked as though he might cry, but no tears came. Instead, his lips trembled into a small smile, uncertain but real. Amina smiled too. "It was my mother's," she said softly, "but now it belongs to you. Wear it and remember that you are not forgotten." Chaik stared at her, his fingers still gripping the necklace. He did not have many words, perhaps none at all, but his eyes spoke more than words could. They were filled with gratitude, shock, and something else, a sense of being seen. Around them the market went on as usual. Traders shouted, buyers bargained, children laughed. But for Amina and Chaik time felt slower. The moment between them was quiet, yet powerful. She stood, brushing the dust from her dress. "Be safe, Chaik," she whispered, though she was not sure if he had told her his name or if she had simply felt it in her heart. The boy nodded slightly, still holding the necklace with one hand as though afraid it might vanish. Amina picked up her basket and walked away, but her heart stayed heavy with the image of the boy's eyes. She did not know what his story was, where he came from, or what would happen to him tomorrow. But she knew she had given him something more than food. She had given him a piece of her heart. As she left the market, the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the road. The air grew cooler and the noise of the crowd faded behind her. Amina touched her now bare neck, feeling a strange emptiness, yet also peace. She knew her mother would have approved. And somewhere behind her, Chaik sat quietly, his small smile still on his face, the necklace resting against his chest. It was not just a piece of jewelry to him. It was proof that someone, somewhere, had seen him and cared enough to give him something precious. That evening, as Amina returned home, she wondered if she would ever see the boy again. She did not know then that the necklace would one day reveal a truth far greater than she imagined. After that day in the market, Amina carried home more than just her basket of goods. She carried the weight of her choice. For a few hours she felt light, almost proud of what she had done. She had helped a hungry boy, given him food, and even gifted him something that had always been close to her heart. At night, as she lay on her mat, she replayed the moment when Chaik's small hands touched the necklace and his eyes filled with silent gratitude. For a while that memory brought her peace. But soon, another feeling began to rise. It started as a soft whisper in her heart, then grew louder with each passing day. Regret. The necklace had not been just an ornament. It had been her mother's. On the day her mother had fallen sick and knew her time was near, she had pressed it into Amina's hand, saying, "Keep this close. Whenever you wear it, think of me and know that I am always near." Those words had stayed with her, giving her comfort during lonely nights and strength during hard days. Now the necklace was gone. Amina touched her bare neck many times as if hoping the chain would appear again. Each time she felt the same emptiness. She tried to tell herself that it was for a good cause, that a boy in need now carried a part of her mother's love. But her heart did not always agree. Sometimes she felt as though she had betrayed her mother's memory by giving it away so quickly without thought. In the days that followed, Amina found herself drawn back to the market again and again. She hoped to see Chaik sitting in the same spot or walking through the crowd. Each time she searched with her eyes, moving slowly past the fruit stalls, the cloth sellers and the spice tables. But he was never there. She asked the traders if they had seen him. One woman selling groundnuts said, "Yes, I saw a small boy with a necklace a few days ago. He walked toward the river." Another man selling fish said, "The boy comes and goes. No one knows where he sleeps." The answers gave her no peace. The market was a big place full of people who came and went. A boy like Chaik could vanish easily, swallowed by the crowd. Days turned into weeks and still she found nothing. At home the regret grew stronger. Each night, when she lit her small lamp, she felt the absence of the necklace like a shadow in the room. She tried to push the thought away by keeping herself busy, sweeping the yard, cooking, helping her neighbors. But when she was alone, the memory returned. Sometimes she would sit by her window, her chin resting in her palm, asking herself, "Why did I do it so quickly? Why did I not think first?" She remembered the hunger in Chaik's eyes, the way his hands shook as he ate, and she knew she could not have walked away. Yet she also knew that she had given away something irreplaceable. It felt like she had lost her mother all over again. Her friends noticed the sadness in her eyes. One afternoon, her neighbor Abina asked gently, "Amina, why do you look so heavy these days?" Amina forced a smile. "It is nothing, Abina. Just thoughts." But it was not nothing. Inside, her heart was full of blame toward herself for letting go of the one thing that tied her to her past. Sometimes she even dreamt of her mother, standing silently, watching her with kind eyes. In the dreams, Amina reached for the necklace, but it was never there. The market became a place of both hope and sorrow for her. Each time she walked there, she hoped to see Chaik. Each time she left without finding him, her sorrow deepened. Traders began to notice. "Are you looking for someone?" they would ask. She would nod and say, "Yes, a small boy." But after weeks of asking, the traders stopped replying with certainty. They only shrugged as if to say the boy was part of the wind, seen one moment, gone the next. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky red, Amina stood at the edge of the market. She watched the crowd thinning, the sellers packing their goods, the children running home. Still there was no sign of Chaik. Her shoulders dropped, and her eyes filled with unshed tears. She whispered softly as if speaking to the wind, "Mother, forgive me. I thought I was doing good. But now I fear I have lost you." The words caught in her throat, heavy and sharp. She pressed her hand against her chest, where the necklace used to rest. It was just skin now, bare and empty. She walked home slowly that night, each step heavy. She could not shake the thought that she had thrown away not just a necklace, but a memory, a promise, and a part of herself. As the weeks stretched longer, Amina began to accept that the boy might never be found. Perhaps he had moved to another town. Perhaps he had traded the necklace for food. The thought of someone else holding her mother's last gift made her stomach twist. Yet she could not hate the boy. She had seen the truth in his eyes that day, the truth of hunger, need, and quiet gratitude. Still, her heart remained divided, caught between kindness and regret. Each morning when she woke, she felt both the warmth of giving and the sting of losing. It was a lesson she had not expected to learn, one that grew heavier with time. The necklace was gone. The boy was gone. And Amina was left with nothing but her memories and the weight of her choice. But deep inside, though she could not see it yet, her story with Chaik was not over. One evening, as the golden light of the setting sun touched the rooftops and filled the streets with warmth, Amina walked slowly through another part of town. She had not planned to go far, but something in her heart had pushed her feet forward. Her eyes wandered over the narrow alleys, the stalls closing after a long day, and the voices of children running home. The town felt alive yet calm, and she allowed herself to breathe deeply, though her heart still carried the heaviness of her lost necklace. She turned a corner and then she froze. There, just a few steps ahead, under the soft glow of the evening light, sat a boy she knew. Chaik. The same boy she had searched for so many weeks. The same boy she had almost given up hope of ever seeing again. Her breath caught in her throat. He was sitting on a low stone, surrounded by children younger than him. They sat cross-legged on the dusty ground, their eyes wide, their faces lifted with wonder. Chaik's hands moved through the air as he spoke, his voice strong, filled with life and color. He told stories, his body alive with energy, his gestures painting pictures that the children could see only with their minds. And there it was, the necklace. It hung on his chest, glimmering in the last rays of sunlight. The chain caught the light like fire, and for a moment Amina thought it looked even more beautiful than it ever had when resting on her own neck. Her steps slowed and she did not move closer. She stood at a distance, hidden slightly by the shade of a tree, her eyes fixed on the boy. Her heart raced. She had imagined this moment many times, finding him again, asking him to return the necklace, holding it in her hands once more. But now, as she watched, something inside her shifted. The boy was not the weak, hungry child she had first seen in the market. He was not sitting alone with tired eyes. Instead, he was full of life, his voice carrying strength and hope. The children leaned toward him, laughing and gasping at the right moments, as if his words held magic. And in the center of it all, shining brightly, was her mother's necklace. Amina's eyes filled with tears, but they were not only of sadness. The necklace, which she had thought was lost forever, had not been wasted. It had not been sold or thrown aside. It had become part of this boy's strength. It made him stand taller, speak louder, and believe in himself. The sight stirred something deep inside her, a mix of loss, relief, and unexpected pride. She remembered her mother's words, spoken long ago, "Keep this close. Whenever you wear it, think of me and know that I am always near." Amina had thought those words meant the necklace should never leave her side. But perhaps her mother's love was not trapped in gold and metal. Perhaps it was in the kindness Amina showed when she placed it on Chaik's neck. Perhaps her mother's spirit had guided her to give, to share, to pass on strength to someone who needed it more. The children clapped as Chaik finished his story, their voices ringing in the quiet street. Chaik smiled, a wide smile that lit up his face. For the first time, Amina saw confidence in him, not the broken, weary child she had helped, but a boy who carried hope and gave it to others. Amina pressed a hand to her chest where the necklace used to rest. The emptiness felt less sharp now. The ache was still there, but it had changed. Watching him, she felt as if her mother's gift had not been lost but had simply found a new purpose. It had moved from her neck to his heart, and through him, it now touched the lives of many. She thought of going to him, calling his name and telling him who she was. She thought of asking for the necklace back, explaining how much it meant to her. But her feet stayed still. Something told her that this moment was not about reclaiming what she had given. It was about seeing what that gift had become. The necklace gleamed again, catching her eye. It no longer looked like just a keepsake. It looked like a symbol, a sign of hope shining on a boy who had once seemed forgotten. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple. Slowly the children rose and scattered, running off toward their homes. Chaik remained sitting, his fingers brushing the necklace gently as if it were a treasure. His eyes shone with pride, and for a moment he lifted his face to the sky, as though whispering thanks to the universe. Amina turned away then, her heart steady but soft. She did not need to disturb him. She did not need to explain herself. She understood now that the necklace had not been taken from her. It had been shared. Her steps back home were slow, but this time not heavy. She carried with her a new thought. Sometimes the things we fear to lose can grow brighter in the hands of others. Her mother's memory lived not only with her but also in the boy who now wore the chain. That night, lying on her mat, Amina closed her eyes. Instead of regret, she saw the glow of the necklace against Chaik's chest and the laughter of children around him. It brought her peace, a different kind of peace than before. and in her heart she whispered, "Mother, your gift is alive. Not lost but living." Amina's heart beat quickly as she finally gathered the courage to step out from the shadow of the tree. Her feet pressed gently against the earth as she walked toward the boy she had once helped. Chaik turned his head and noticed her approaching. His face lit up instantly and a wide, bright smile stretched across his lips. His eyes sparkled as if he had been waiting for this moment, as if he knew that the one who had changed his life would someday return. "Do you remember me?" Amina asked softly, her voice filled with both nervousness and hope. Chaik nodded eagerly. "Yes, I do," he said with excitement. His fingers touched the necklace around his neck. "You gave me this. I have never forgotten." Hearing those words made Amina's heart tremble. She had feared he might not even remember her, that her kindness had been just a passing moment in his life. But now she realized that the necklace was more than an object to him. It was a memory, a gift that lived inside him every day. Chaik held the necklace carefully, almost reverently, and continued speaking. "This necklace is not just gold. To me it is courage. When I feel afraid I touch it. I remember your kindness and I feel strong. I feel like I am not alone anymore." Amina's eyes softened. She listened, amazed at the depth of his words. He was only a boy, but his heart spoke with the strength of someone much older. Chaik's smile grew as he went on. "Because of this courage, I began to gather the children you saw earlier. Many of them are like me. They have no one to guide them, no one to listen to them. Some are hungry, some are lonely. I wanted to do something for them. So, I started sharing what little food I found. And when food was not enough, I gave them stories. I told them tales to make them laugh, to make them believe in something better." Amina could hardly believe her ears. She looked at him, standing there with dusty feet and worn clothes, yet glowing with light. He was poor in the eyes of the world, but in truth, he carried riches in his heart. The necklace, a symbol of her late mother's love, had become a source of strength not only for Chaik but also for every child he had touched with his kindness. "You are very young," Amina whispered, "but you have done so much already." Chaik looked down shyly, then raised his head again, determination shining in his gaze. "It was your gift that gave me the courage. Before that day, I felt invisible, as if I was nothing more than a shadow in the crowd. But when you placed this necklace on me, I felt seen. I felt like I mattered. That one act told me that I could also do something good, no matter how small." Tears welled in Amina's eyes. She remembered how quickly she had given the necklace away, almost without thinking. For weeks, she had regretted her decision. She had thought she had lost her mother's last memory forever. But now, hearing Chaik's words, she realized something greater. The necklace was not lost, it was alive. It had carried her mother's spirit into another life, and that spirit had grown even brighter through Chaik's actions. The boy stepped closer, his voice filled with quiet pride. "When I sit with the children, I tell them stories of hope. Sometimes I teach them little lessons I have learned. I tell them to share with one another, to be kind, to believe in themselves. When they laugh, I feel strong. When they smile, I feel rich, even though I have so little. This necklace reminds me that kindness is power. It is more powerful than hunger or fear." Amina stood in silence, her heart swelling. She had once pitied Chaik, seeing him as only a poor, hungry boy sitting alone by the road. But now she saw him differently. He was standing tall, his back straight, his face bright. He was no longer only a boy to be pitied. He was a leader, a source of light for others. "You are a gift to these children," Amina said at last, her voice trembling with emotion. Chaik smiled again, his hand still resting on the necklace. "And you are the gift to me," he replied simply. "Without you, I would not have found this strength." The words struck deeply inside her. Amina felt her mother's presence in that moment, as if her spirit had guided her to Chaik from the beginning. She understood now that her mother's necklace had never been meant to remain only on her own neck. It was meant to move, to grow, to bring courage where it was most needed. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in orange and purple, and the gentle evening breeze carried the laughter of the last children who had run home. Around them, the town began to quiet, but in that silence, Amina felt an unusual peace. The boy she had once pitied had transformed into someone she admired. She wanted to say more, but words seemed too small for what her heart carried. She simply placed a hand on Chaik's shoulder, steady and kind, as if to say she was proud of him, as if to say she trusted him with her mother's gift. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw gratitude, strength, and a promise that he would continue to shine. As they stood together in the fading light, Amina knew something had changed forever. The necklace had begun as her mother's memory, then it had been her act of kindness, and now it had become Chaik's source of courage. From one person to another, it had built a bridge, between grief and hope, between weakness and strength, between loneliness and community. And though she had once feared that giving it away was a mistake, Amina now saw the truth clearly. It had been the beginning of something greater. Tears welled in Amina's eyes as she stood before Chaik. The glow of the necklace on his chest seemed brighter than ever, as if it carried not just the memory of her late mother, but also the light of all the good that had come from it. She pressed her hand gently against her heart, realizing that she had not lost her mother's memory after all. It had not vanished the day she gave the necklace away. Instead, that memory had been carried into the world through Chaik, and through him, it had spread into the lives of many others. She had once feared that her quick act of kindness had been foolish, that she had thrown away something too precious. But now she saw the truth clearly. What she thought was a mistake had turned into a blessing. The necklace was no longer just her treasure. It had become a living symbol of kindness, courage, and hope. Chaik looked at her with warmth in his eyes, as if he understood what she was feeling even without her saying a word. The children who had been sitting with him earlier had run off to their homes, but their laughter still echoed faintly in the air. Amina wiped her tears and smiled at Chaik. "My mother's love is still here," she whispered softly, "not just with me but with you and with every child you help." From that day forward, Amina decided she would no longer stand at a distance. She chose to support Chaik in all his efforts. Whenever she could, she returned to the market or the open ground where the children gathered. She brought food, simple clothes, and sometimes even books that she managed to collect. At first, the children were shy around her, but with Chaik by her side, they slowly grew comfortable. They listened not only to his stories but also to hers. Together, the two of them became guides for the small group of children who had once felt invisible. Chaik shared his courage, teaching the children how to face each day with hope. Amina shared her gentleness, teaching them how to care for one another. What had started with a single necklace now blossomed into something much larger. It became a bond, a small but growing circle of kindness that reached further and further. The community soon began to notice. At first, people were surprised. They remembered Chaik as just another poor boy sitting at the roadside, silent and hungry. They remembered Amina as the young woman who often walked through the market, kind but ordinary. But now the two of them were standing together, shaping something new. Neighbors whispered about the change, some in wonder, others in disbelief. Yet as time passed, more and more people were touched by their example. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, a woman from the village approached Amina. She had heard about what Amina and Chaik were doing, and she wanted her own children to join them. Soon, other parents came too, not only with their children but also with their own help. Some brought food, others brought stories, and a few even brought mats for the children to sit on. Slowly, what began as one boy's courage and one woman's kindness grew into a gathering of many hearts. Amina often thought about her mother in those moments. She imagined her mother's smile, proud and full of warmth, as if she were watching from above. Each time she saw the necklace gleam against Chaik's chest, she felt her mother's love living on. And each time she heard children laugh or saw them smile, she knew that love had found its way into places it was needed most. Chaik too grew stronger in spirit. He was still young and life was still hard, but with Amina's support he carried his role with pride. When the children asked questions he answered patiently. When they felt sad he lifted their hearts with stories. And when Amina spoke, he listened carefully, learning from her wisdom just as she learned from his courage. Together they became partners in hope, two different lives joined by a single gift that had once seemed lost. The story of the necklace spread beyond their small town. Traders who visited the market carried the tale to other villages. They spoke of the young woman who had given away her mother's necklace and the poor boy who wore it with pride. They told how the boy had turned his courage into leadership, and how the woman had turned her sorrow into strength. The story inspired people wherever it traveled. Some said it was just a tale too simple to be true. But those who saw Amina and Chaik knew it was real. They saw the children gathering each evening, their laughter filling the air. They saw the necklace shining not as a jewel of wealth, but as a jewel of kindness. And they understood that the story carried a lesson. Sometimes what we give away returns to us in a far greater form. For Amina the lesson was clear. She had not lost her mother's necklace, she had set it free. And in setting it free she had given it the power to change more lives than she could have ever imagined. What once was only a symbol of her personal grief had become a symbol of shared hope. For Chaik the necklace became more than courage. It became his reminder that he was never truly alone. Each time he touched it, he remembered that kindness could turn even the smallest life into something meaningful. And for the children who sat at his side, It was a symbol that even the poorest among them could hold light, strength, and dignity. As days turned into months, the bond between Amina, Chaik, and the children only grew stronger. The market, once filled only with noise and trade, became a place of laughter, lessons, and stories. And within every smile, every shared meal, every moment of kindness, the spirit of the necklace lived on. Amina often looked at Chaik and thought of how everything had begun with one simple act. She had given away her most precious belonging, thinking she had lost everything. But in truth she had gained something far greater. She had gained a family of children who looked up to her, a friend in Chaik who had become like a brother, and a purpose that filled her heart with peace. The necklace was no longer just hers nor just Chaik's. It belonged to all of them, to every child who found hope, to every adult who learned from their story, to every person who believed that kindness could light the darkest path. And so, their tale became more than just a story. It became a reminder, whispered in homes, sung in markets, and carried in hearts, that kindness never dies and love never fades. What we give away does not vanish. It returns, brighter and fuller, in ways we could never expect. The sun set once more, casting golden light on the market, and Amina smiled through her tears. Her mother's gift had found its true place in the world. The necklace shone on Chaik's chest, and in that light, there was no sorrow, only hope, only love, only the promise of tomorrow.